The NBA just released its first and second all-rookie team, and there may have been some surprises, but there are some that were not a surprise to be on these teams. But in today's video, we want to answer who is going to be the best player to come out of this draft, and why is it Scottie Barnes? Let's get into it. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Amateur Hour Sports. On this channel, we give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the latest Toronto Raptors news, and we're going to be bringing it all throughout the offseason. So if that is of interest to you in any way, then make sure you are subscribed to the channel, and don't be afraid to hit that notification bell to know exactly when I'm posting a new video. We just hit 9,000 subscribers. I'm so grateful, guys, but we're on our road now to 10,000 subscribers, 5 figures. But our video today, we want to assess the all-rookie teams that we saw and try to predict who is going to be the best player to come out of this draft class. I think that this is going to go down as one of the best draft classes of all time. Like, there are seriously tons of generational players that are in this draft. So it's going to be very difficult to predict which one is going to come out on top, but there are a lot of things that we can break down to try and find the best possible answer to this discussion. So we had our all-rookie teams, and on the first team, 3 easy ones. They were unanimously voted: Scottie Barnes, Cade Cunningham, and Evan Mobley. Easy choices for the first team all-rookie. Franz Wagner, I agree with. Jalen Green, kind of on the fringe, could have been in the second team instead for guys like Josh Giddey or perhaps even Herb Jones, but the second team, as you see here, has those players as well as Chris Duarte, Ayo Dosunmu, and Bones Highland. So looking at these teams, I think I can kind of agree with all of the players that are on this list and all of the players on the specific teams. There could be a case for Josh Giddey over Jalen Green on the first team, but I talk a little bit more of that on my second channel, AmateurHour TV. But today, we're trying to answer which of these players is going to be the best players. And we can talk a lot about all the great things that each of these rookies possess, but I believe there are only 5 players that could possibly come out of this as the best player in the draft class. Those 5 players are, of course, Scottie Barnes, Evan Mobley, Cade Cunningham, actually Jalen Green, and maybe a little bit surprisingly for me to say, Jonathan Kuminga, who wasn't even on an all-rookie team. But I think had he been on a team inferior to the Golden State Warriors where he was getting more play time, he might have just gotten on one of these teams, perhaps even the first team, because when Jonathan Kuminga got playtime, he was a very good player. And the reason I'm going to say Jonathan Kuminga here, and the reason I said in the intro Scottie Barnes is probably going to be the best player to come out of this draft class, these are the types of players that the NBA revolves around at this point. Unless you're a generational type of talent like Nikola Jokic or Luka Doncic, typically the best players and the players that win championships are two-way athletic forwards. I mean, Giannis will kind of put him into that situation because he's a forward, he's a power forward, two-way guy, super athletic, just won Finals MVP. If you go back for Finals MVPs for the last 10 years, it's typically two-way athletic forwards. You've got LeBron James, you've got Kevin Durant, you've got Kawhi Leonard, you've even got Andre Iguodala, who won it over Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. This is the archetype of a player that can dominate in the playoffs. Jimmy Butler is another great example. Look what he's doing in the playoffs right now, how well he's playing and how he can elevate to these playoff situations. So that's the style of player that I would prefer to have on my team if I'm going for a championship. If you ask me if I would prefer 2 players who are close, one's a guard, one's a forward, 9 times out of 10 I'm going to go for the forward because that's the player who has more influence in the biggest games. So Scottie Barnes, Jonathan Kuminga, what they bring is vital. Evan Mobley, I feel like more is going to turn into a stretch 5 as the NBA is really starting to embrace this 3-point game, embrace maybe not having big men. I mean, there's very few 7-footers remaining in the NBA unless, they're athletic or they're just freaks in nature like Nikola Jokic, as I'm mentioning. I just feel like the way Evan Mobley plays, undoubtedly an amazing player who could be an all-star one day. I just can't see him being that dominant number 1 guy on a championship team. Cade Cunningham, with his skill set, I mean, he's very reminiscent of Luka Doncic. If Cade Cunningham starts to really dial in his efficiency, he could be one of the best players to come out of this draft. And Jalen Green, as a shooting guard, he could be such an elite scorer. Like, I wanted this guy coming into the draft. Obviously, in hindsight, we got the right guy here in Scottie Barnes, the rookie of the year, but Jalen Green has the ability to get to those next levels 100%. And, there's a case for a lot of these guys. I think maybe you can even throw Josh Giddey into this conversation, though I don't want to touch him too much. I just don't think he's going to have the level of some of these other players. So what does Scottie Barnes bring specifically that maybe some of these other guys don't? Scottie Barnes is elite on both sides of the ball. He's absolutely elite on both sides of the ball. And, maybe not quite at that elite status, but he is going to be there. He was so good this season, so impactful for the Raptors. And one of the biggest things about Scottie Barnes' game is that even when maybe statistics weren't really going his way in the box score, his influence on the game was so important. And for Scottie Barnes being like the fifth option on a lot of occasions for the Raptors lineup, because, there are so many great offensive weapons. You got Siakam, Gary Trent Jr., Fred VanVleet, OG Anunoby. A lot of the time, Scottie Barnes was being very passive on offense and still put up Rookie of the Year level statistics for his team, who was the 5th seed. And Scottie Barnes had such an impact on this team, winning 48 games this season, despite the fact that the Raptors projected to win only 36 games. So we have to give a lot of credit to Scottie Barnes in those endeavors and how Scottie Barnes can take those things and grow into the future. Scottie Barnes is executing so well right now without a three-point game, really. I mean, he averaged 30% shooting from three, and that's a lot better than we were expecting, but Scottie Barnes, he wasn't necessarily an outside threat that people had to worry about. But can Scottie Barnes get to the level where he is a perimeter threat that you do have to worry about? You really have to have your hands up and play him tight on the perimeter. His jump shot, already way better than expected. Why can't he continue to build off that? His jump shot is smooth. Mechanics are good. I see Scottie Barnes being an average NBA shooter at the very least at some point in his NBA career. And the fact that he's got this two-way game, the fact that he can work so well in transition, the fact that he can already create his own shot on a lot of occasions, it's very promising for Barnes. Talk about the other guys. Kuminga, I love his athleticism. I don't really give him as much of a chance as some of the other guys, but I have to respect his athleticism. I have to respect the raw talent that he possesses. He reminds me a little bit of Giannis here, maybe not quite to that same degree. Anytime you have a raw prospect who's just super athletic, you have to kind of liken him to Giannis, and Kuminga I can kind of do that with. Cade Cunningham, like I was saying before, has a kind of Luka Doncic archetype, and Evan Mobley, a little bit similar to Chris Bosh, or maybe even Kevin Garnett as a player who can kind of dominate with the ball in their hands and create their own shot despite playing as the big, as a power forward or the stretch five. I think Kevin Garnett's a more accurate comparison for Evan Mobley than Chris Bosh. So that type of player. Sure, Kevin Garnett, a former MVP, but that type of player in today's NBA, unless you are as elite as Kevin Garnett was, can you really be that dominant force on a playoff team? Kevin Garnett, even himself, didn't necessarily succeed until he was with Paul Pierce and Ray Allen. No disrespect to Kevin Garnett whatsoever. Remarkable player. Just, we have to be a little bit critical when we're in these discussions. Jalen Green, I can kind of see turning out like a Devin Booker. Maybe he's just a phenomenal scorer, and that's great. That's an all-star level player. But is he going to be that type of player that carries his team? Because Devin Booker right now, he's still very young, but I don't really see him doing that unless he has a lot of help on his team. Scottie Barnes, I can see being the focal point of a team. Cade Cunningham, I can also see being the focal point of a team just based on the way they play, based on the way they can orchestrate the game as ball handlers, as scorers, as shooters, and Scottie Barnes more so the way he plays defense. I don't really see that for the other guys. So, even though there are a lot of players who can come out as the best player in this draft class, I'm going to back the impact Scottie Barnes has on his team beyond stats. And as the stats are starting to get better and better, we can really understand how good of a player Scottie Barnes is. I think as far as rookie seasons have gone, in terms of players who I can actually see, just maybe winning MVP at some point. It's way too early to really call these things, but looking at the players we have right here, I can see Scottie Barnes winning an MVP one day. I can see Cade Cunningham, honestly, winning an MVP one day, especially if the Detroit Pistons turn around that organization, which, right now they're on course to do that. Draft lottery didn't really go their way, but still, they're going to get a good player in the draft in theory. If Detroit can keep turning the team around and Cade Cunningham to kind of lead them to playoff success, then maybe one day he could be an MVP. But the Raptors are already in a position where they can get playoff success next season. Scottie Barnes just won Rookie of the Year, proved he was the best rookie in this class. And we've seen the jumps that second-year players can make with LaMelo Ball, with Anthony Edwards. A lot of these guys can make that big jump next season. And the way Scottie Barnes works for his game, works to get better, wants to improve constantly. The difference that we saw from his rookie season in the NBA to what he showed in college. That was a completely different player in Scottie Barnes that we were not expecting. So if he continues to be a dog in the lab and continue to work on his game, what sort of level can Scottie Barnes give us next season and seasons after that? If all of these guys can stay healthy, and, praying for all of them to stay healthy, you want to see all of these guys succeed 100%. But the way Scottie Barnes impacts the game, the statistics he displays, how he has really no weaknesses in his game. At some point in his career, he's going to have that dialed in 3-point game. I think like there's going to be no weaknesses to his game. And for that reason, the way he can play defense, guard anybody in their team, guard the best player on the other team, he can score in multiple levels, how he can play make, such a good passer of the ball. He can create his own shot, good ball handler, can carry it up court in transition. Like, no weaknesses to his game. So all of these things considered, and respect to everybody involved in this list, and I think it's going to be an all-time great draft class. I expect Scottie Barnes to be the best player to come out of this class, and we're going to be looking back in a few years on what an outstanding selection it was from Masai Ujiri, taking him 4th overall, when many considered it to be a reach. Even myself maybe considered it to be a reach. I think Scottie Barnes is going to come out of this one as the best in this draft class. That is not saying that these other guys are not going to succeed, because there is so much talent in this draft class. But Scottie Barnes, I think, is going to be the best. So what do you guys make of this video? Who's going to be the best player to come out of the 2021 NBA entry draft class? I'm going with Scottie Barnes. Who are you going with? Let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments down below, because that is it from me for today. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you are still here, please be sure to drop a like on the video. It goes a long way to supporting the channel. Lets YouTube know that other people of similar interest to you might like this video as well and will recommend it to them. And it only takes you a second to do. And make sure, if it is your first time here on the channel, we give you the greatest coverage and analysis on the Toronto Raptors. And I'm going to be doing it all throughout the offseason. So make sure you are subscribed to AmateurHour Sports. Join our Discord with the link in the description to continue the conversation off of the videos. And I'll see you again next time for another video.